everyone. Thanks for listening to Wake Up, Look Up, a podcast where we connect events happening in real time to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Zach Wyrock. On today's episode, we're talking about getting away with mass murder. This is not a how-to episode. Wouldn't want you to think we're endorsing that. This is actually prompted by something I read in The Atlantic this week about a fascinating story about a Polish journalist. I cannot possibly say his first name. I'll just call him Kaz Salkowicz, who ended up in Lithuania in the early 1940s. So right as the rise of the Nazis was really reaching its fruition in that part of the country. And he was a journalist, but at the time, because of the economy, wasn't working as a journalist. He was doing odd jobs around town. But he was also secretly keeping a very detailed and descriptive diary of the events happening in Lithuania at the time, including the mass murder of the Jewish population there. Recently, his diary was just published, and so it's been kind of in the news lately, his writing. And there are some harrowing accounts. I mean, two stories that stand out to me. The first is he talks about one day where 200 Jews were taken into the woods and shot. The next day, 300 Jews were taken and shot. And Kaz goes on to say that for the next week, every day, hundreds of Jews were taken out into the woods and shot. You see, the town he was in Lithuania was on a railroad line. So they would bring them in on the trains, march them into the forest, and shoot them every day for 1 week. He tells another story where there was a time where he was at the train station and they were unloading Jewish people and walking them into the forest. He talks about a crowd of women and children that was so big that it took 15 minutes for the crowd to pass wholly in front of him from start to finish. He describes it as they're walking into the woods, the women are looking at him, knowing what's coming and asking him to save them, which of course he was powerless to do. Eventually, that entire crowd was shot by the Nazis. It is gripping stuff, heartbreaking, tragic stuff. It's also stuff we wouldn't have known about, at least not in particular, if he had not written about it, which brings up an interesting spiritual point. You see, at the time, this is happening at a remote town in Lithuania. Later on, we would come to know that the Nazis were evil. We would come to know about concentration camps and a variety of other ways that they murdered people. But probably we would have never known about what they were doing in Lithuania, except for this one guy that wrote it down. It made me think that all these Nazi soldiers perpetuating this mass murder, committing these heinous atrocities, probably thought, at least to some degree, that they were getting away with it, that no one really knew what they were doing, and therefore there were no moral repercussions. But of course, one guy did know, and he was writing about it, and now his writing is being published, so for all of history, everyone will know what they were doing. But of course, more than that, God knows. You see, the idea that a journalist was secretly recording so that their crimes were being captured is a great metaphor for the idea that we all think from time to time we are getting away with something. But the Bible makes sure that we know that that isn't true for any of us. I think in particular here of Psalm 11, where it says that the Lord's eyes are always searching and he sees everyone. Have you ever thought about that? You see, the one thing that is certain, because God sees everything, is that judgment is coming for us all. For these soldiers, it comes now in the form of history judging them, as we modern people look back at what they did and recognize how awful it is. But that pales in comparison to the judgment that is waiting for all of us. Can you imagine what it would be like to stand in front of a God who knows everything you've ever done, everything you didn't do, everything you said and left unsaid, every thought that was in your brain? That should sober us up. No one gets away with anything. No act goes unseen, unheard, or unnoticed. That should also, of course, prompt us to lean into the grace of Jesus Christ, without which none of us would have any hope. The only way to stand before a God who sees and knows everything is to have his Son, his righteous life and his death, speak on our behalf. Stories like this are a great reminder. Judgment is certain. Justice is certain. But so, thankfully, is forgiveness because of Jesus. Hey, thanks so much for watching this video. While you're here, we'd love to ask you to hit subscribe or to like so you get future content. If you listen to the audio version too, make sure you leave a review and a comment. That really helps. Consider sharing it on social media and helping us get the word out. And hey, while you're here, check out all the other content that Christ Community Chapel is putting out, including the videos that are around me right now.